Hi again. This is really a continuation from the second screenshot because I felt that you'd probably like to see a bit more of the range of what's available in the archives, of online archives of the articles. So here we are at the entry to the portable. We're clicking submit and moving into the portable and going straight to the tab that says articles, and here we get the listing. Now, before we look at individual journals, let's consider these first four files that anyone, whether they're members or not, can look at. These give you the contents of each of the publications. So first of all, let's take the first one, is a scan of a book that was published in 1990, which was a very thorough indexing of everything in the journal from the beginning to 1989. It's a full hard copy summary of all the various articles and who wrote them, and it gives you references to where everything is and what page everything is, and a lot of references towards the actual contents of the articles. It's a very thorough and excellent piece of scholarship. The only disadvantage is that its numbers, its references are all in Roman numerals, and therefore it's very difficult to scan it and use it as a reference for page numbers. But if you're really looking for something, it's a very good idea to study this book, find out where it is, and then access the electronic records. The second, of course, this degree of excellence has not been performed since 1990. So from 1990 onwards, what we've done is scanned in the contents pages for each of the journals, and we'll see these in a moment when the file is loaded. Here we go. Yep, so these are the contents of all the journals, and you can quickly look through, see what articles there are, what pages and what journal they're on, and then go and access the journal. So it's a very handy resource to see what's available. The same thing applies to correlation. If you're a subscriber to correlation, well, if you're not a subscriber, you can see what's in all the various editions, and once you are a subscriber, you can look at the contents of those editions. And here they are from 1968 right the way through to today. Well, until quite recently, actually, this needs to be slightly updated. It only takes you up to 2014, although the search engine can get you through to the latest edition. The same applies to the Medical and Astrology and Medical Newsletter, similar sort of file. Now, once you've got your subscription in up to date, and you can access the journal, for the moment we just look at the journal, you can type in any information you wish, and you can type in the name of the file that you're looking for, as we showed you earlier, the date, and or the name of anything in the contents pages, and find the journals. Saw all that on the previous screenshot, so we don't need to go through that again. Instead, I want to show you a number of journals. The first one is the first one. It's a interesting typewritten A4 journal, which is taking a little time to load. Here it comes. There we go. Rather weather, January 1959. The articles, see the articles here by John Addy, Brigadier Firebrace, and Joan Rogers, and the lectures. And interesting to see what lectures were being held in 1959 in London, and an editorial and so on. So that's a fascinating archive to see how Astrological Association started. We fast forward now to 1969, and I'm going to look at the autumn of 1969 for a very interesting reason. You'll see that firstly the journal has changed its layout. It's a A5 document, and we have scanned it 2 pages up. But what I wanted to show you was this first selenocentric horoscope. In other words, a horoscope for when man first set his foot on the moon, drawn moon-centric rather than Earth-centric, geocentric. And there's the chart. Of course, Mark Pottinger developed this technique to do charts for people on all the planets and some of the asteroids, I think. Remains to be seen how practical and useful they will be in the years ahead. The contents page is interesting. You can see again we've got Brigadier Fire Race is still writing for the journal 10 years after we were founded, and John Addy as well as Peter Roberts and Alex Harvey, and the range of articles are particularly interesting. You may, just 2 years after the legalisation, or the decriminalisation rather, of homosexuality, there's a very interesting article by Ruth Hale Oliver. I suspect today people might feel some interesting comments on it, but it's worth reading. And this is, as you look through these journals, these old journals, you see whether you agree necessarily with the analysis or not, there's a very high standard of scholarship which belays the rather ordinary presentation. Of course, to print things in these early days was very expensive, and therefore the sort of standard display was basic, but the content is far from basic. So moving on another 10 years, we come to January 1979. Here we, the winter of 79. And here again we're still keen to the 2-page format. Again, perhaps might be interesting to look at the contents page before we rush ahead. Let's just scroll back to there. There we go, Joan Collins Smith, Ronald Harvey. Some very interesting Aztec charts and work by Dr. Felix Day and Donald Stalybras. Some of you remember, I know, and these bring back very many interesting memories of people that were known, or for younger people to look at this old stuff and see just how much the astrologers who built the Astrological Association knew. It is a wonderful, enlightening experience. I'm just looking through to see, yes, these tables, this is some of the Aztec work, done in 1979, long before people got obsessed with the 2012 issue. You can see now they're beginning to print symbols, are now becoming available with computers in 1979. I'm looking for a chart to see if there's any charts that are printed still. It may be a bit early for that, but certainly in the coming decade, computer technology was going to have a major difference to the way that the journal presented its data and information. So let's quickly look ahead, because there's a lot to see, to 1989, and again January, we use January, just keep it fairly steady, and January 89, and we'll have a look at that one. Now, that's loading quite quickly, thank you. And here we have a similar layout. The layout hasn't changed tremendously. Let's just see what we got here. This is where, that's it, here we go. It's fiddling around with my mouse reaction to the mouse. Let's just go up a little bit, down a little bit. Here we come. Yes, as just a word tip, it is many ways easier to use the arrow keys and the page up, page down controls to move around sometimes, particularly in these double page spreads, which are quite dense. Here again, Dr. Felix J. is now talking about Acela, Capana, Sirius and Vega, the fixed stars. Interesting work. It's an interesting article an early article on Venus and the rose that Nick Colostrum is so famous for. And very good that Mike Hardy in those days looked after the midpoint corner, and the red head effect by Dr. Beverly Stefford and all. That's a very interesting one to look at. It's a major dispute in astrological research. Now we again fast forward now to 1999, and we come to July 1999, which is the one that was done for that great solar eclipse, which we had that massive conference in Plymouth. For some of you who've been members for a long time will remember that. And here we come to the journal that Adrian Duncan, who was then editor, did for the for the association. It's interesting always to go through and see who was doing what in those days. Just look, here's the content section. Something on the Scottish Parliament, and lots on the eclipse and what people thought about the eclipse. Certainly worth having a good look at through this journal, this 1999 journal, which was a very seed time in many ways for the Astrological Association. And you'll see that we've now changed the shape. It's got bigger than A5, but not as big as A4. And the layout of the chart in 2 columns, a lot more demonstrations, but we'll see the development of this layout later under the new editor when Gerasim Vitalis took over. And we go straight forward now to 2008, and the July 2008 is when Gerasim Vitalis, who was editor from about the year 2000 to 2008, really long service, brought out I think his last but one journal, and it was a special anniversary, 50th anniversary one, and by then the covers had become coloured, and that's a gorgeous coloured cover, and the actual layout, or internal layout, had become much more sophisticated. You know, more varied in the way that it was done, and quite interesting side issues and things like that. Still a lot of work to do, but certainly moving in a much more graphic and challenging layout. But you'll notice that again it's just one column. That Gerasim's gone back to one column, and some people said that maybe there was some adjustment needed. So we move on to the first edition by John Green in November 2008, which was a major change in the display and quality of the journal in terms of printed output. Whether the content's any better is something for you to study and read and decide, but certainly the look and attractiveness and accessibility has gone through another stage. This is now an A4 journal. This is the first one that John Green did. You can see the colour is coming in on certain pages, but not all the pages. These are the contents that are in the journal. And there's John's first editorial, and you can just flash through, and if you have a look at these later journals, you'll see there's a tremendous amount of improvement in the display and characteristic. Although there's only colour in the first few pages, most of the magazine is still black and white. So we now go forward again to the 2015 and January 2015, which is the first edition by Victor Oliver, who is the present editor, and this is challenging, provocative, the elephant in the room, all about sun sign astrology. And you can see here again another level of layout improvement. This time we were using Kat Keane, who's been doing the layout for the journal recently, ever since Victor took over. And let's just have a look at this. You can see now that to a certain extent there's 3 columns. I'm not sure if we kept to that in the end. We'll see how it goes. And there's one more to show you, but there's a lot more sort of supported information that gives you an idea of what the articles are about and draws people in to study it and read it, and of course the graphics of the charts display and that sort of stuff are particularly attractive. So just look at the last journal that has been published. This is July at the time I'm telling you, and by this time another big development has happened. Well, it's not maybe so substantial in that we now have a coloured journal, full coloured throughout. It's just, let's just go through it fairly quickly. Reacting to, well, here we go. Yeah, okay. And here you can see that the whole journal throughout from the beginning is going to be in colour, and it is increasingly sort of taking advantage of all the display facilities. So this is just a quick, almost, I'm sure for you, frustrating look at the journals, but it shows you what is available if you go online and look for yourself, and obviously take your time. Just two more things to show you. One is the fact that we've got the astrology, and I've renewed my membership for the Astrology and Medicine Newsletter, so these are now available, and you know, those who subscribe to it can access those online, all of them, right the way back to 1986. This is the first one that came out, and it's a very sort of basic but full of interesting information on this area of knowledge. And then there is the next one that came out, the last one, sorry, that came out. We just go through here, which is I think there's one just come out that hasn't been loaded yet, but this is the last but one, at the end of last year. And you can see that now this has been, the quality of this has improved a little bit, and the actual interest of insets and inserts and complementary material to help people follow the articles has been included. Same with correlation. The first correlation looked like this. Very basic, and you know, you'll have to read very carefully, but it's interesting subject matter and definitely worth looking at. The moon and rainfall, as they're not meagre magazines. These, the correlation is one of the most underrated astrology magazines, I think, and its work on research is groundbreaking. This is the latest one, and this will give you an idea of the way that the correlation is going. Again, we're having a full colour correlation. It's a brilliant article by Robert Curry. There's a little bit of colour inside. There will be more colour in the next issue and the next issues from now onwards. So, you know, if you are interested in astrological research, then I do encourage you to subscribe. Well, I hope this quick run through the what's available online for people who subscribe or are members can access. I hope that's interesting to you, and I really wish you lots of many hours studying the whole range of astrological information that the Astrological Association has managed to make available. Bye for now. And now we've logged out. Bye.